part of Section 39, Section 1 of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria that guarantees freedom of expression as a fundamental right, journalists in Nigeria still find it somehow difficult to express their views by asking people in authority salient and pertinent questions which borders on leadership, equity, accountability, and transparency.
Well, recently, the publisher of Cross River Watch, Agba Jalingo, was finally released from detention after perfecting his bail condition early in the week. Jalingo was first arrested by the police in August 2019 on the orders of the then Ayade-led Cross River state government.
He was subsequently arraigned for treason and attempting to overthrow the state government due to highly critical articles he published, where he stated that he raised questions on the whereabouts of 500 million naira meant for the establishment of Cross River Microfinance Bank. Due to his long detention, Amnesty International has declared the activist a prisoner of conscience.
However, the court, which had earlier rejected his bail application, subsequently granted him bail.
I just learned that the work we need to do is still a lot much ahead of us, and politicians don't want to be asked questions. And taking me to prison also showed me some of the incongruities that are in Nigerian prisons, and it's also another line of advocacy for me as we move forward. The governor, like he said himself, is my brother, and when he came into power, I did a lot to promote him, and I felt that it was also part of my duty to also continue to support him until he succeeds. And I did that to a very substantial extent until sometime last year when he was going to run for elections, and he withdrew 3.4 billion naira from the local government funds in Cross River State to run his election campaign. I drew his attention to it. He wasn't happy. That was actually where our problem started. And he promised he was going to send me to jail. And the 500 million naira microfinance money was just what broke the camel's back. He couldn't take it any longer, and he had to take that action. But he made a lot of allegations in that interview, and I'm going to take my time to respond to all of that when I settle down. Yes, of course. The 3.4 billion naira, he didn't argue. He accepted that he withdrew the money, but he only said he used it for what they call low-hanging projects, quick impact projects. And he sent his deputy governor to go and do the inspection of those projects around the state. And it turned out to become a national scandal too, because there was nothing that was commensurate with the amount of money that he withdrew from the local government.
And the 500 million?
Yeah, no, not the 500 million. I should also say that because of that, as the state chairman, the Cross River State chairman of AAC, African Action Congress, we went to court as a party. We filed a matter against the Cross River State government at the vacation court in Port Harcourt, asking the court to grant us an injunction barring Governor Ayade from touching the local government funds pending the conduct of local government elections. He called me and requested that I should withdraw the matter in court, and I refused. And like I say again, that was actually where the problem started. And I felt that I wasn't going to keep quiet anymore. The support for 4 years, it was very clear that the governor had no direction. And I told myself I wasn't going to lose my voice as an activist because the governor is my brother. Yes, in Cross River in particular and in Nigeria in general, because it is clear that these leaders don't want us to ask questions. If not, if I ask you for 500 million naira that you said you were going to use in starting a microfinance bank, what I expect is answers, not incarceration. So I will call on Nigerians to say that there's a lot of work to do. The little space that we grab from the military, politicians are shutting it down for us every day. And the earlier we wake up and maintain our position, the better for us. If not, they will eventually shut down this place.
Well, joining us now is Lanre Arogundade, Executive Director, International Press Center, seasoned journalist and author. He is joined by Agba Jalingo himself, journalist and publisher, Cross River Watch. Together, we'll be looking at freedom of speech in Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. I have questions for both of you, but let me begin with Agba Jalingo, who has gone through this ordeal. I mean, you published that story asking about the whereabouts of the 500 million for the microfinance bank in July 12. A month after you were arrested.
10 days after.
10 days after you were arrested in August 2019. But here is Governor Ayade of Cross River State saying and vowing, I had nothing to do with it. Agba Jalingo has a case to answer with the federal government because he threatened a revolution. And this has nothing to do with me. So what's your response to Governor Ayade? Did you ever find out the whereabouts of that 500 million naira? And if you didn't, would you continue to investigate that matter?
Well, I would say, without mincing words, that my governor is a liar. And I will say it again, my governor, Governor Ayade, is a liar. Like I said in the song that you just played, sometime last year, he's my friend, he's my brother. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, he's my brother. And I did a lot to promote his government, even before his election. And 4 years after, I found out my governor is not a serious person. From the titles of his budgets, he's a consummate dictator. He wants to walk alone. He doesn't like anybody asking him questions. I endured that for 4 years. And after 4 years, I had to find a way to rediscover my voice because I was losing it. And what happened was, when the re-election started, he said I wasn't campaigning for him. I told him, no, you have not impressed me so much to be able to stick out my neck for you. People know me for something. And if I must stick out my neck for you, this is not what I was expecting. So I will wait. When you begin your second term, I'd rather do my job as an activist. He didn't like it. I noticed that, like I said in that same sub, I did a mistake. There's a 3.4. The figure actually was 4.3 billion naira. That is what the governor moved from the local government accounts to do his re-election campaign. But
he had evidence for that.
Yes, he didn't argue. Even when I confronted him, the governor did not deny that he didn't withdraw the money. He accepted that the money was withdrawn.
Yes, he accepted to you?
Yes, he accepted. And he
Do you have evidence of that?
Yes, he accepted. We have our WhatsApp communication. In that his interview, he talks about WhatsApp communication. He said if he opens his WhatsApp communication, people will know that he was sent from God for me. So we have that communication. And I would like him to open it. I will open mine too, if we have to get to that extent. Now, when I asked him about that money, he wasn't happy. He said he withdrew the money for quick win projects in the 18 local government. Cross River has 18 local government. And we have correspondence in Cross River Watch around the 18 local government. And none of them could confirm to us that anything serious was going on in the local governments that was worth 4.3 billion naira. I also got notice from some of the commissioners that he brought the information to ESCO that he wanted to do some projects in the local government. But there was no memo subsequently for the ESCO to give approval. Himself and Olafo, who was the Commissioner of Finance at that time, knew what they did by themselves to get that money out of the system. And he wasn't happy that I brought the issue out. He was very, very angry with me. We had an altercation on the phone. He was bitter. That was where this whole thing started. And then the microfinance bank, you said you're opening a microfinance bank. He opened an office. And then they gathered 500 young people at the cultural center and said they were training them, after which they would give them small loans to start businesses. After the 3 days training, they went and gave them long-reach products to go and sell on the street. That was what ignited my interest in investigating whether this bank was working or not. We sent our own reporters undercover to the bank and said, okay, go and get the forms and let us see if we can open accounts in that place. Repeatedly, we went there. There is no banking activity going on there. It was after my arrest and when the information came out that they started trying to make it look like some banking is going on there. At that point, nothing was going on there. I came back to him again and said, 500 million naira, that bank is not working. And the next thing he told me, sent me a text message, which I have even published. I am going to confront you with the figures. I will arrest you, prosecute you, and send you to jail. That is what he sent to me. 10 days after, I was arrested. And I knew how I was arrested. The plan to arrest me was hatched by his chief security officer, Mark Anyogo. I know the details. His chief of staff, Martin Urim, and his younger brother, Frank Ayade. Then they sent the commissioner of police to Lagos, the IGP Intelligence Response Unit, Abba Kyari's office, who came there and arranged the logistics for my arrest. The commissioner even called me, trying to draw me out. I told him I was in Abuja. I know you want to arrest me. I'll be back in Lagos tomorrow. I'm not a criminal. I'm not going to run away from law enforcement agents. And the moment I got to Lagos, the following day, on the 22nd, they came, held my wife, staff hostage in an outlet, and then they brought one of them to the house later in the evening and got me arrested. And then the following morning, we had to take that tortuous journey to Calabar, and they handed me over to them. So
they arrested you from Lagos?
Yes, and took me on a 26-hour road journey to Calabar and handed me over to them.
So in a nutshell, we still cannot find this 500 million naira.
That money was diverted.
And you would continue to investigate it?
Yes,
Mr. Arogundade, let me bring you in here, because you were once NUJ chairman, now executive director of National Press Council Center. Are we witnessing a repression of the media in Nigeria? Are we faring better than we did during the military regime?
In a sense, we're not faring better, because if you look at the statistics, journalists were killed under the military. Journalists are being killed under civil rule. Because we monitor attacks on journalists very regularly. And you would recall that about a year or 2 years ago, when the Committee to Protect Journalists, published the list of journalists, whose murder or, death has not been explained or resolved, Nigeria had, 9 there. And some of those killings took place, under civil rule. So there's a sense in which you cannot say we're faring better. There's also a sense you could say that it was understandable under the military that journalists would be attacked because the military government was a dictatorship. They didn't want anybody to question them. They ruled by decrees. There was even a decree that said that even if you publish the truth, that was decree number 4. Decree 4. You had decree number 2. So you had so many decrees. So you could say, in a sense, although it was not acceptable, but it was understandable. But under a civilian dispensation, it's a different thing. So in that sense, we can say that it's worse off because there are things you expect in a democratic setup. You expect that journalists will be free, and you will expect that where people believe that journalists have erred in the course of their duty, they will follow the due process. So what would have been the due process in Agba Jalingo's case, for example? So assuming without conceding that money was not diverted, and then the governor believed that either he has been defamed or he has been libeled, you could go to court on that basis and sue for libel or sue for defamation to say that you want to clear your name. That would be the question of, the governor enjoys immunity. But we do know that recently, the vice president, a lawyer, opted to waive his immunity so that he could go to court to defend himself when a newspaper published a story about him. So that is the line he should have taken. Okay. So what we are now seeing now is this is a very, very dangerous precedent, and that's why we're so much interested in this case. We're just seeing after a long while, and he was happy that we took this matter to the AU, to the African Commission in Banjul. We raised it there and said, this is not acceptable. Because what is happening now is that a journalist raises question in the course of investigation. And instead of arrested and slammed that journalist with terrorism charges, knowing fully well that the Terrorism Act allows detention for 3 months without trial in the first instance.
Okay, so that's why I want to come in here. I want to know, was there an order? Was there an arrest warrant for your arrest? And secondly, there are many, because this story is very convoluted, Agba, and you know that. There are many angles to it. So there's the personal angle of the fact that, okay, you are related, asked for money, he didn't give it to you, and the likes. There's also the terrorism angle, your connivance with Showore, as regards this. So there are many angles to this. But I'm particular about the process of arrest. Was there an arrest warrant, or were you just bundled away and taken? And what was the 26-hour journey like? Were you in handcuffs throughout 26 hours? I mean, just tell us everything.
Okay. I saw them coming with one of the girls working for my wife. I went to open the door. My wife didn't want me to open the door. I said, no, I'm not a criminal. I have no reason running away from policemen. I opened the door, and the next thing I saw an ID card. You're under arrest. They came in. My wife rushed out from the bedroom and was like, where's your arrest? And they said, madam, leave us alone. We don't have any business with you.
So your wife asked for an arrest warrant?
Yes. Who are you people? You are not even dressed in uniforms. Who are you? You want to take my husband away. Where's the warrant of arrest? They said, we don't have any business with you. They grabbed me, of course, and took me away to their office in Ikeja. There was no warrant whatsoever. And I even offered to buy flight tickets for the 3 of us that were going, 4 of us actually, that were going to Calabar. They refused blatantly. And they insisted that they must take me by road. And very early in the morning, they took me by road. But there was a good Samaritan among them, somebody who eventually became very friendly and was helping me out to also send some information out to my people. And when we got to Calabar, I was
so you handcuffed all the way to Calabar?
I was halfway. They handcuffed me up to a point.
So they handcuffed you for about 16 hours?
Yeah, it wasn't up to 16 hours, up to about 8 hours. Then the handcuffs were loosened, and we got to Calabar. When we got to Calabar, they handcuffed me to a deep freezer that was in the charging room. Wow. And that happened for about 1 week. 1 week or more, I was permanently handcuffed to a deep freezer, only if I wanted to ease myself.
Handcuffed or you were chained?
I was handcuffed and chained in the legs.
So you were handcuffed in the hand and chained in the legs?
Yeah, yeah. They wanted to make it really look like I am a terrorist. But in the course of that, they started bringing documents they call terms of settlement. They brought my IPO, his name is Ibe Hezo. Brought documents they call terms of settlement, that if I sign that document, that they will let me go. And within the document, it was something between me and Governor Ayade. They will give me money, I will not criticize the governor again. In the 100 million naira.
They're going to give you 100 million naira in the document.
I should not criticize the governor again. All some ridiculous commitments that they needed me to make so that they would let me go. And if I don't, they would charge me for treason. Let me also tell you that they approached his own DPP, the Cross River State Director of Public Prosecution. He's still in service. And the DPP's advice was that there is nothing to charge this man for. They even went to the DSS in Calabar, asking them to prosecute me for terrorism. The director, whoever was there, refused to bow to that. They now went to the police. And the police were willing to accept that offer under the leadership of Agba Jalingo, who is now an AIG. They were the people that wrote those charges and took me to court. And it was strictly under the instructions of Governor Ben Ayade.
I would like to come in here. You know, Mr. Lanre, you know, you mentioned something. You said he was arrested under the terms. They always made him look like a terrorist. And even in the case of Mr. Sowore, it was repeated that it was because they were trying to preserve national security. And if you look at the terms here, they begin to blur the line between someone raising questions as a journalist and criticizing the government. So as, you know, someone that is a big advocate on these things, how do we begin to draw that line to understand that as a journalist, they are indeed protected? They cannot be just picked up and arrested anyhow. And then also, my question to you, in the time that you were locked up, your wife did come out to say that she was being threatened and being harassed by some of these security officials. I would like to know what's going on with that and if she's actually okay.
Up till now, the harassment hasn't stopped. They're still harassing her on the phone. And they have built a web around her business premises. And she's still complaining. She's scared of going to work now. Most times she just wakes up and see. Now that I'm back, she's having some confidence that, okay, maybe I may return to work. But she's actually scared of going to work because she says she's noticing suspicious movements around and she doesn't know what is going on. She's still threatened up till now as we talk. She's traumatized. But we're dealing with it privately, and I hope that she will get over it very soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, you have the right to deal with some of these issues privately, but the truth of the matter is that, you know, you also have the right to take, legal steps, because, and that is the problem we're facing. So it's not just Agba Jalingo now, it's Agba Jalingo's wife. And it's like history, you know, repeating itself all over again, where I do recall in those days when security men wanted Dapo Oloruyomi at all costs, and he was not available, and the wife was nursing a 3-month-old baby. They arrested the wife with a 3-month-old baby that time. So it's like, that's why we keep saying that you can't even see any difference between what is happening now and the military. Now, you raised a big question about journalists. Now, what we're saying really is that, of course, journalists enjoy some privileges to the extent that if you look at the Freedom of Information Act in section 16, where they listed those who cannot be compelled to disclose information, journalists occupy the third position, after lawyers, doctors, and then they said journalists. So to that extent, we have the protection of the law. But we're also not saying that we're not responsible to the society. What we're saying is that when you have issues with journalists, follow the due course. Don't begin to look for laws that amount to, just punishment, because that is what we're seeing, in this particular, matter. And they are mixing things up. On the one hand, they say, well, Jalingo said he's a journalist. He was at Sowore. As individual journalists, we all have our rights. No law says journalists cannot belong to political parties. The only thing is that we ask people to be careful, because in the course of your work, if you are identified with a political party, people will believe that you are biased. But that is at the level of rights. If that is a problem, sue him on that basis.
Okay, so let me bring in Agba Jalingo back in here, because you are a known member of the AAC.
I'm the state chairman.
You're the state chairman in Cross River State. Yes. What do you say to those who say that, because of your association with this party, and we do also know what Sowore is going through, attempting to overthrow the government through a revolution now protest.
Allegedly attempting.
Through a protest, yes, and all of that. So what do you say to people who say, Agba Jalingo cannot be unbiased in his criticisms and reportage of governance? What do you say to people like that? And Mr. Arogundade, you were the chairman of the umbrella body of journalists in Lagos at a point. Is there any law? Is it against the ethics of journalism for a journalist to belong to a political party? So let Agba Jalingo start, because I need you to speak to that. Can you be unbiased?
I have learned to speak with facts. I have my right to belong and hold any position in a political party. No law stops me from doing that. I have made an allegation that 500 million naira was misappropriated. That is the question I expect people to be asking. I expected the governor to take me to court so that we'll go to court and prove whether that money is in that bank or not. It is the figures we should be looking at.
Indeed.
I don't need bias to say whether 500 million naira was misappropriated or not, unless somebody is saying I shouldn't have said it. And I also need to let Nigerians know that two of our editors in Cross River Watch are also standing trial as we talk.
For?
Jonathan Ugbal and Jeremiah Achilong.
So it's not only you.
No, it's not only me. They were filed. They went to do their job of covering a proposed protest, the Revolution Now protest. I was in Lagos. I was at the National Stadium where I was terribly tear gassed. And there was one that was supposed to hold in Calabar, which did not even hold. They went there to do their job. And the police arrested 3 of them. Our managing editor, Jeremiah Achilong, Jonathan Ugbal, our news editor, and the state correspondent of the Nation newspaper. They were detained at the Cultural Center, at the Anti-Kidnapping and Cultism Police Station. Then they were later moved to the state CID. In the middle of the night, the governor said they should release Nicholas Kalu from the Nation. They released him at editors the following day were charged to court.
Mr. Arogundade, before I respond to that question, because of want of time, there's so much to talk about. I was going to ask you to respond to something, but that just slipped me. Mr. Arogundade, respond to that.
Well, the ethics of the profession, because we have the code of ethics of journalists in Nigeria, and we also have the Nigerian Media Code of Election Coverage. Both documents do not say that journalists cannot belong to political parties. What those documents talk about is for journalists to exercise caution in the discharge of their duties, especially when it comes to safety. So it talks about, avoiding displaying the signal of a political party so that party thoughts, do not, attack you. When it comes to whether, in his own case, which is quite peculiar, I would say it depends. If I were to advise, I would say that if you are playing a leadership role, an active role. By the way, in 2003, I went into politics. I ran for Senate in Lagos West, even though I was not working in newspaper, but, I was still doing, media work. So there's no law that says that. But I would say that it might be better if one is chairman of a party, or maybe you're a candidate, you're a senatorial or presidential candidate or a governorship candidate, and you have your own media outfit. You could actually have an arrangement where for the period you are holding that political office, somebody could, act for you in whatever position you were in that organization. I think it's helpful so that it does not allow issues to be blurred. It has the right. There's no doubt. No law says that, but I think it's not, that's why I said if I were to advise, I would say it might just, be better because you could still run the organization, through.
There are claims and counterclaims here.
Yeah.
You are having your own side now, but Governor Ayade has been speaking, point blank. Did you collect money from Ben Ayade at any point in time?
Money for what?
Because those have been his claims.
Any money?
Money at all.
Why is it difficult for him? Okay, let me pick on some of the things he said.
Yeah.
He said...
and did he try giving your wife money for IVF at any point in time?
He said I was going for... My wife has delayed conception.
Yeah.
Sometime last year, we were going for IVF. The governor's wife, the first lady, Linda Ayade, is a medical doctor. Like I said, we are quite close. And this thing has taken some time. We have been trying to have our babies. And she asked me, what is happening? Usually, I don't discuss those issues. They have forced me to start talking about this issue because it puts my wife under pressure. Now I have to do it. I'm sure she's watching me at home. I don't know how she's feeling. But the wife, I literally was begging that, please, let me, even if it's your transport, we're going to do it somewhere outside the country. I said no. She said she insisted that she wanted to at least send something to me. 1 week after, she sent 1 million naira. If you have ever done IVF before, you know that IVF is not done with 1 million naira.
Yeah.
Then we went out and came back. When this whole matter started, the governor went out and lied that the wife gave me 7 million naira. I can print that particular statement to us.
Only exchange of money.
No, calm down. Wait, I will explain. I will explain further. We have had, in Cross River Watch, when we have a yearly anniversary that we do, yearly lecture and all of that. There are occasions when I reach out to him and say, please, can you help us pay for the venue of the event? Okay. Can you help us do this? Can you help us do that? I have done that, and he will procure the venue for us, then we go and do those activities. And all of that we have done over time. And then he donated a vehicle to the Association of Cross River Online Journalists. It's even bad now, parked in a mechanic workshop. The name is boldly written there. This vehicle was donated to Accroach by Senator Professor Ben Ayade. But every time he goes out, he says he bought me a car. Like you donate a vehicle to NUJ or to NMA, you say you bought me. I'm not an ESCO in Accroach. These vehicles have been with their chairman. I've not driven that bus. I don't know how it is like. But every time he wants to talk, he goes out and says he bought my official car. He doesn't even know the car.
There was also rumors in the rumor mill that he saw to your bail. And you want to come in there? That he saw to your bail.
Is he one of my lawyers?
That he saw to your bail, that he facilitated. Because prior to this time, you have not been granted bail. You tried a couple of times to get bail. You didn't get bail. So they were like, pretty much, he soft-pedaled for you to be able to get, this bail.
He took me to jail. He had to find a way, whatever he needed to do. I didn't do anything.
Okay.
He took me to jail. And I tell you, he's not one of my lawyers. I want to give credit and commendation to my lawyers, led by Adinka Fusika, SAN, Atao Chinke, the former Attorney General of the state, James Sibo, and the rest of them, who worked very hard to get me out of detention.
Very quickly.
I'm not minding the lies that I've been told by
He wants to say something.
Yeah, but I wanted to say something, and I think it's because we also need to learn lessons in all this. And it's so difficult. Like, I was chairman of NUJ, that period too, where you needed vehicles, things like that. Normally, state government provide all those things. But I feel that increasingly we need to begin to rethink some of these things. To know that independent journalism can survive, without, patronage. We're not talking about personal issues. I mean, obviously, you have elements, of blackmail here, there, and there in this particular instance. But I also feel that, look, when we organize ourselves as bodies, the less we, reach out to the state, for support. Because these days, there are so many international organizations, foundations, even governments, legitimately that support, genuine press freedom or media capacity building activities. And my appeal would be that, journalists should begin to look in that direction so that this kind of thing do not, come up, again and again.
Mr. Agba Jalingo, very quickly, because we're almost out of time. Beyond your relationship and that of Governor Ayade, what has been Governor Ayade's relationship with the media in Cross River State? Because he's been accused of using state powers to oppress, journalists and opponents in the state. What has that relationship been like? And then I do recall and know that you lost a sibling while you were in incarceration. How did that make you feel? Because you couldn't attend the burial.
Well, I need to say that once he became governor in 2015, Governor Ayade, the first person he went after was Venatu Sikam, who was very critical of him. Ironically, the two of them are together now, who was criticizing him. He procured the services of a magistrate, they declared him wanted, and Venatus ran out of the state. Immediately after then, the governor also arrested another critic of his, Paul Ifere. He was also arrested in Abuja, handcuffed and driven by road from Abuja to Cross River and arraigned at the magistrate court at Moore Road for criticizing the governor. Because the Attorney General then said he was criticizing the governor on Facebook. When he was done with the Ifere was granted bail. His own appointees also attacked another journalist, the publisher of Fearless Reports, there in Cross River. They call him Peter Nyali, who ironically also is an essay on media now to the governor. He was brutalized, beaten, and wounded in Obudu, where he went to cover an event in Obudu. And then so on. There are different instances in the state where it is clear that this governor does not want any form of criticism. He wants to rule the state like a monarch. That's how he wants it. And the moment you say anything about him, himself and one of his younger brother, Franco, that is very notorious, they don't want to accept any form of criticism. Their only response is to arrest you and lock you up. But I want to tell Nigerians and those who are watching us out there that none of this is going to intimidate us or stop us from doing our work in Cross River State. I will continue. There's a lot of sleaze and corruption going on in our state, and I will not keep quiet. I am 42. Donald Duke became the governor of my state at 36. He celebrated his 37th birthday in office. I am mentally strong enough, sufficiently educated to be the governor of Cross River State. And anybody thinking that at 42, I will be intimidated out of doing my work, that person is deceiving himself. I will not. I'm a veteran of this struggle, and they just wasted their time and resources locking me up for 6 months. It hasn't changed anything, and I will remain focused to do my work.
But he said he fed you in jail. Said he fed you in jail.
Those are bloody lies.
You did
I don't even want to see, anytime you ask the governor about accountability, he finds a way to distract your attention.
Very quickly before we go, you did mention that you were going to continue advocacy about the state of Nigerian prisons and that sort.
Yes.
Something that you found during your time of incarceration advocacy. Can you just quickly speak to us about that before we go?
Well, a lot of things in prison, the conditions are still not human yet in prison. I lived in what they call a special cell in prison, but there was nothing that was special about the cell.
Correctional facilities, they're now called.
There was nothing special about the cell. You need to see our foods. I came out with some materials that I will soon start serializing in public. I'm writing my prison memos, but I have videos and pictures that I will soon start serializing, and I'm sure that Nigerians will be horrified by the conditions of the prison. And of course, talking about my younger brother, I thank the governor for not allowing me to see the corpse of my younger brother. I've always prayed that my younger ones will come bury me. I never wished I would see the corpse of a younger person. And the governor gave me that opportunity. So I tell him thank you for not allowing me to see him.
on that regard.
Yes.
Condolence in that regard.
It was a very emotional period for me. For the first time, I cried in prison.
I would like to say a very big and thank you to you, Lanre Arogundade.
Thank you very much for your continued interest in press freedom affairs. I think, like I said, there are clear lessons to be learned in all these.
And congratulations, Executive Director.
Thank you.
I also learned those lessons too. I've learned those lessons too.
Thank you very much. Well, very quickly to the United States, where the race for the White House has just heated up. Last night, yet another Democratic debate.
Oh,
and
yeah.
of course, the first timer.
Oh, yeah, saw that. Goodness me.
Bloomberg.
Watch it all through the night. Bloomberg.
That's been the show today. Thank you so much for watching. I am Adesoa Omoran.
I'm Rufai Yoseni.
And I'm Shaito Atigari. Thank you so much for watching.